Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy. We are back with our spoiler review and discussion on WandaVision. Today we're up to episode 8. Previously on, we are 1 week away from the big finale. And as you can see from the opening graphic, we have got a lot to talk about in this one. We say that every week. But honestly, we mean it this week, especially. We have a plan. We have things to talk about, but obviously, we're going to give people a few minutes to come in. We want you to comment along as well, because honestly, you guys do half the work. Chip in with your theories, your reviews, your opinions on this episode, where you think it's going to be leading to. We don't know how long this one's going to go on for tonight. We have a lot to unpack, more than we probably thought. We're going to be going plot point by plot point, what we liked, what we didn't like, where we think it's going to go. So much to discuss. This is like the highlight of everyone's Friday now. This is going to be good fun today. But before we dive straight into it, George, we'll just do a quick blast of the socials, and then we'll be going straight into this thing.
Absolutely. So this is the penultimate episode, and it's quite sad, really. So I love the Fridays, and so much spoilers-filled discussion. And what we want from you guys at home is that we love these videos. So we have a lot more Marvel stuff coming out. We've got Falcon and the Winter Soldier starting in 3 weeks. We've got the Marvel series. So if you like Marvel videos, if you like how we spoke about it, then hit the subscribe button, because we've got a lot more on the way. Disney Plus are covering our Fridays pretty much indefinitely at this moment in time. And of course, as Chris said, do comment below. Now, if you are new, this is the first time you've checked out our channel. If you're furious that we put a spoiler in the thumbnail, I'm sorry, we did delay it until 8 o'clock, that reveal. Sorry, 25 past 7, I updated it. That being said, you can moan at us on our social medias, which is Facebook Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, letterboxd.com/Cinema Savvy, and we have a link to our TeePublic in the description below. But yes, we are here to talk WandaVision once more. It's amazing that I keep thinking this every week. Me and you both spoke. The background behind us on the video is like, it feels like a long time ago now, week one. The black and white, the 4:3 aspect ratio, and everything has evolved. And I think as a beautiful segue into sort of the beginning of this episode, that the evolution has fully took place, and we are no longer in the sitcom realm.
Yeah, no, I mean, and the evolution of our opinions as well. I remember when it started off, go back to our episode 1 and 2 review, we enjoyed it, I think. We were sort of getting used to it. It was like a different change of pace. We didn't really know what to make of it. And then, yeah, all these weeks going on, we didn't even know if we liked the idea of it being episodic week to week, and we wanted it all out as one thing. I'm glad that it is week to week, because of all the speculation and the theories going on. Or we've got the comments coming in already. We'll go over to the comments in just a second, but yeah, just the evolution of this show is incredible, and I'm going to be really sad when this finishes, to the point where, you know, WandaVision was probably out of the 3 Disney Plus shows coming out, next to Loki and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, was probably maybe the lowest of the 3. Didn't really care for it, and then, you know, when's all said and done, this could be the best one of the 3. Who knows? But yeah, I guess we can jump straight into it then. So, opening scene, we need to talk Agatha, because we got the reveal at the end of the last episode. Coming into this one, I'm glad that we got somewhat of an origin story for her. I think that was the big thing for this one. I just want to go out and say that this is probably my favorite episode of the series so far as well, just for the sheer amount of things it gave us to talk about and what it's going to lead to. I think if I was going to compare this episode to anything for me, because I don't know what general consensus is on this episode. I don't know if people love it. Comment and let us know if you love this episode or if you thought it was just okay. I compare this to the Clone Wars TV show and sort of what it did for the prequels. Maybe not to that extent, but this didn't sort of like recontextualize anything. It added some nice information to those previous films, like Age of Ultron, where we said that, oh, there isn't really much development from then to Endgame between, you know, Wanda and Vision. We get it in this one, or maybe we don't know much about her past. We get it in this one, so we get enough nuggets of information about Wanda's character. I think this is the strongest her character's ever been. And just in terms of everything, you know, we kind of get her story told piecemeal throughout the episode. And it was probably one of the most emotional things that Marvel's done, I would say, especially in this series as well. But yeah, the Agatha stuff, I'm glad that we were right out of the gate. You know, we got that reveal in the last episode. We're straight into it. Let's explain where she came from. I think that's probably all we're going to get. We were sort of debating whether the whole episode was going to be about Agatha. And maybe it would have been nice to have got a little bit more. All we kind of get is that she was like a bad witch practicing, what was it, dark arts, dark magic. And then somehow absorbed, it was kind of confusing. She sort of absorbs all the power of all the other witches, which kills all the other witches. Just before we hit live, I was saying it reminds me of Palpatine absorbing all the force power from... We're not going to talk about episode 9, but that just reminded me of that, I guess.
No, absolutely. The Salem stuff was funny because I remember we were chatting before. I was like, is this the Doctor Strange land? Like when I first watched the episode, I was like, Salem Doctor Strange, and I was like, no, of course not. Salem's the real witch things. And we were joking about how back in those days, if they thought you were a witch, they'd throw you in a water tank, and if you survived it, you're a witch. They'd kill you, and if you drowned, well, you weren't a witch, but you're dead anyway. So that's just mental. But it was a really interesting reveal because me and you were chatting, saying, could we have a whole Agatha episode? I wouldn't want that. And then the episode started. I was like, 1693. I was like, are we just going to get a 300-year origin story now? And I'm going to sort of jump in straight away. I'm really glad we didn't. I think there's still more to learn about her. I think we're going to find out more about her next week. I think we're going to get a little bit more because we don't know, sort of jumping right at the end, we don't know her ultimate character motive at this moment in time. We can assume that she wants the knowledge of how to create life and all that kind of stuff. But I think we're going to find out a bit more about her next week. However, to get the sort of the digging of information is one way to put it about Wanda. I didn't expect that. I thought, we're going to get a bit of history. We'll get about how Westview happened and all this stuff, and we got none of it. And sort of jumping as an overall thought with that, it was interesting because it's once again another week goes by. This is not what I expected, and I'm the same as you. I love this. We've got loads of comments. I'm going to bring up one of them. We will go through all of them properly, but there is one here which is bit premature. Stands out one of the best of the MCU. I'm gonna combine this with what you said before, Chris, as well. How we've learned her story the most. I think this comes down to being TV. You've got 9 episodes that's going to air on TV. Even if it's 20 minutes or so, that's still a 3-hour film. I don't think sort of Scarlet Witch, I guess we can officially call her due to contracts and buying Fox. I think that Scarlet Witch is someone that you can't develop in the film when they didn't have the rights to call her that, or call her a mutant, or bring up her dad, or bring up stuff, and is a really tricky character because you've got bits and pieces across the films, and obviously we are going through them. I've not got to Age of Ultron in 5 films, which I'm really excited for to see. And you get those moments in Infinity War when she's got to kill Vision, and they played that in the recap stage. The first time they played it. I loved it again. We kind of mentioned last time they didn't want to say Thanos' name. They didn't want to show his face. Very much the plucking out the heads, the slap, all that stuff. And I'm really excited, again, talking about the rewatch, to get back to Endgame. Because when you get that moment, which is still one of the best moments back in 2019 now, when she says, you took everything from me, that's going to hit differently. I think now I've seen WandaVision, that's going to hit on another level. So sort of as an overall, not just the series, but today's episode, we have a complete character. I don't want to say origin story. I want to say it's more than that. It's not an origin story. It's just pure development, and it's, again, affecting the things we've seen in the past. And the Clone Wars sort of is a really good description for that, because Clone Wars, the prequels had their issues, but when you go back and watch episode 3, they make a comment about the Clone Wars, and then in your head you can think about the Clone Wars series. And I think that's what WandaVision is going to do when we begin to get her introduced. So I'm really looking forward to that. I know I've sort of left Agatha at the beginning, but ultimately we don't get really any more than that on her. She's playing sort of passenger, the odd sarcastic comment, playing narrator. We get a Mad Eye Moody scene with her, which really annoyed me, because I'm convinced she said the word engorgio to the word. We'll get to that stuff later. We're jumping in. We're going to do this A to Z properly this time. So I don't know if you've got anything else to add what I've said as well.
For the opening scene, I will say this was the only part where I found the acting very ropey and I've forgotten the name of the actress again. Short-term memory, Catherine Hahn. Like, being Hammy is absolutely fine, but I thought it was downright awful acting when she's absorbing all the powers and she's like screaming. I was almost like laughing at the screen how bad it was. But then, it picked up as it went on. Carl actually makes a really great point here. And I guess I was kind of thinking this, but he kind of voiced it quite in a good way. Found the episode a bit confusing. Last week we are told it's all Agatha, but this week it's all actually Wanda. Yeah, and I'm kind of confused on the motive of the villain, because from this episode it seems like Agatha is curious about the power that Wanda has. Wanda's got all this immeasurable power, and Agatha wants it because she wants ultimate power, I guess. I guess that's her motive ultimately. But yeah, last week it was like Agatha's created this whole unlimited power. Are you doing the
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
We have a lot of Palpatine links going on today. This was not intentional. We've got it in the comments. I am all of the Scarlet Witches.
Unlimited power, and I have the power to save the one you love.
All right. Oh God, it is Palpatine behind it all. I made that joke last week. It's all true, all of it. But yeah, in this one, it seems like she just wants Wanda's power. She has no real power in this world other than that she brought Pietro back from the multiverse, I guess. But yeah, last week it was saying that she'd created everything, she'd fabricated this world. Why at that point we didn't know. So it seems like they've sort of like flip-flopped on a motive in this, and hopefully they make that a bit clearer in the last episode. But I'm guessing we're just going to have like a giant loud punch 'em up in episode 8 now in terms of all that. Maybe they won't go back to that stuff. But if it is literally just that she wants ultimate power, it's fine. It is comic booky, but maybe I'm kind of at the stage now where I want more from a villain who just wants ultimate power, I guess.
No, I'm the exact same as you. I think one of my issues sort of watching this episode, because I thought it was a good episode, the more I've thought about this episode, the better it's been in my head. When the Agatha stuff came, I was like, so her goal is power, and I'm kind of there like, please don't undo one of the most fascinating, unique series I've seen. Not even series, I guess entries in the MCU would even call it. Mm-hmm. One of the most fascinating ones, please don't be undone by a giant, obviously not shoot I'm appending, but you know how like the Wolverine was like, aha, we must introduce the dead man in giant metal animal fights. Or you've got Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, and the tech falls into the wrong hand and they build an Iron Man suit. And part of me is really ever so slightly dreading an ending. I don't think we're going to get it. I think there's going to be something.
Oh, George just cut out. Give it a second.
Because I don't think we know Agnes. Oops.
Oh, you cut out there, mate.
So I'm saying what we don't know is because we don't know Agnes's motive. I'm not too sure what to expect going into that finale. I'm giving them the full benefit of the doubt because I don't think 8 weeks ago would be where we are right now. That hype, that level, and what it delved into. So they've got my backing, but I'm just a bit not sort of as a criticism, but I wanted a little bit more right now. But if we get the answers next week, I'm not going to complain because this really is Wanda's episode, and we know it's Wanda's series. But the doorways are restoring themselves, and each one sort of editing a part of her history that's going to change some of the stuff, I guess, in the MCU forever.
Yeah, and we're getting rivalry set up for next week, and this is why I'm kind of worried about the ending, because clearly you're going to have Agnes versus Scarlet Witch, right? That's what's going to happen. We'll talk about the Scarlet Witch thing in a moment, actually. You've got this new version of Vision, which we'll talk more about in the post-credit scene, who's probably going to be fighting Vision. We don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy. I assume he's going to be sort of like a bad guy that they've got to take out. I think Vision's going to fight this new Vision. And then from the post-credit scene last time, you had Monica sort of coming toe-to-toe with Quicksilver. And obviously she's got powers now. So I feel like you're going to have these three fights going on at the same time. And then Darcy's probably going to be there for comic relief. Or after all said and done, I'm predicting this right now, after all the action said and done, she's going to drive in a van and say, like, I've told you I'd catch up with you or something like that. And it'll be like, ha ha, Darcy gets a funny one-liner. That's my prediction for next week. Anyway, I don't want to talk about predictions just yet. So, yeah, I'm kind of worried about the villain side of things because, I mean, if it does ultimately come down to that she just wants ultimate power, I'm just going to sort of like shrug my shoulders and go, okay, she's a witch, all about powers, dark magic, biting off more than she can chew, essentially. But there's still a lot of good stuff there that at least reinforces the character of Wanda and Vision. And I guess we can move more into that now. So there's basically a series of doorways and Agatha's leading into each one. And we all get like a sort of like a moment or a chunk of information and history about Wanda's character. The first one kind of put paid to my, I guess concerns is the right word. When this show first started off, my biggest question was, why the sitcoms? Why are we doing this style? And as we went from week to week, and then obviously the sitcom stopped, I thought, are we actually going to get an answer to this? Because Wanda's never really expressed an interest in sitcoms. Nothing about her life really matches a sitcom. Why would she pick this as the guise, as the vision for her imaginary world? Why would she choose to throw herself into this? Well, we get an answer to that with this first doorway, where we go back to her as a kid, and that her and her family were learning English through sitcoms, which I know someone who was fluent in French said that the best way was to watch shows or films from that language that you're learning. So I guess that is a legit strategy. Some could argue that it may have been like a shoehorned in thing, like, oh, just put the sitcoms and the DVDs in there. But nevertheless, it is an explanation. So I'm glad that we got that. And then the Stark bomb. that just like completely destroys a home and just kills the rest of her family. Now, it's been ages since I've watched Age of Ultron. It's funny, actually, when I watch this on Disney Plus and it hits the credits, the first one that it recommends is always Age of Ultron every single week, I think. I don't know if that's for everyone or just specifically for me. It knows that I've only seen Age of Ultron the once and I need to watch it again. That Stark bomb, and I think you had the same thing, looks familiar. I've got that image in my head of that Stark bomb that's not going off in the rubble. So I think it's from that film, but I can't remember. But it's just great that we went back, and it just reinforces the character all the more. And I think that's the biggest takeaway I have with this episode is everything that it does for her character.
Yeah, and I think that's what I quite like, because I've not seen Age of Ultron for a long time. And I said before, I'm excited to get to my rewatch. And when the explosion happened, it came out of nowhere. I love stuff like that. I know it wasn't a jump shock, but it was that, you'd assume something bad might happen, but not during the Dick Van Dyke Show. And then that bomb lands and they're into the bed. And when your brain you get deja vu. And it's like, there was a scene in Age of Ultron where there's a Stark logo on a bomb and they're under a bed. And I think it's only a couple of seconds. I'm sure that you've got Elizabeth Olsen talking over the top, and I don't think it's anything that's elaborated on. I think she says, we stayed there for days waiting for a Stark bomb. She's talking to Ultron, I think. Actually, it's starting to click now. I think she's talking to Ultron about how they already dislike Stark. And I think it's that whole Stark's weapon has destroyed where I come from, etc., etc. And again, if I'm wrong, I'm going to rewatch it soon, so I'll correct myself. But I love that moment. And then you get some of the stuff, and it's, we were there for 2 days, it was defect. And then Agatha's like, but was it really defect, or was it you? And I'm there like, are you? I hate using the word retcon. Are you going to say she's had magic powers all along?
Mm-hmm.
Question mark. And I was like, okay. So it was a great scene. Love the scene. I was like, but I'm curious to see how is this going to get followed up. But it was just, again, it was very on the note of the DVDs. The pristine condition Dick Van Dyke Show DVD collection, season 2, episode 21. Yes, kids can remember episodes, seasons, and numbers. I'm not bothered about stuff like that. That's fine. But I don't know if it's worth moving on to the next door as well, which is when it really kicks off, unless you want to add something to the young one.
No, I mean, this is a good segue, because you mentioned there where she was saying about, like the retcon, did she put a magic spell on it from a kid so it didn't go off? Well, we kind of get our answer to that in the next doorway, because no, she wouldn't be able to, because this is where she first comes into contact with the Scarlet Witch, and we'll talk about this now. This was the image on the thumbnail. I knew it had to be the thumbnail. It had to be. There it is. Look at that. So this was kind of the inception of her powers here. So she wouldn't have had them before this point. It's not like a thing that's always been with her. This was where she comes into contact with the Infinity Stone. This was kind of weird. So it's the blue one. I always forget which one it is. The one in the scepter. Is that the Mind? Is that the Mind Stone?
Mind Stone, but it always triggers my brain because it's blue and then it turns yellow.
Yellow, yes, exactly. And I thought, is this like now going into the one, like a sort of flashback to like the Vision one that got ripped out of his head? And I was really confused about that. I couldn't remember that it changed color when it worked. I thought that was kind of strange. So she gets her powers from here. First off, it was cool to go back to that moment again from Age of Ultron. I really need to go back and watch that. Now I've watched this, I think maybe I might have a different opinion on that film, because I didn't like it at the time. But now with everything that's gone on here, maybe it will be like, again, like the Clone Wars, I'll go back and have a new appreciation for it. And it was just so cool to see the Scarlet Witch. Now, I don't know much about the character here in the comic books, the Scarlet Witch, so maybe everyone in the comments seems to know all about the comics, so let me know. I got like sort of Dark Phoenix vibes from this. I don't know if you did, where it was like this cosmic entity that, then changes the person. Similar to Jean Grey, exactly the same as Jean Grey. Now, I don't know if in the comic books, the Scarlet Witch is like this cosmic force, this entity that then goes into Wanda, or if Wanda is just the Scarlet Witch. So I don't know if they've changed it up there or if this is staying true to the comic books. But, I mean, I can't remember who said this. I know that it was in the episode where she's in, like, the Halloween costume of the Scarlet Witch. And we were saying that I would love to see a costume like that. I would love to see Wanda get in that costume at some point. And, we were saying, like, at least they did a nod to it. It's probably never going to happen. After seeing this today, and especially with the name drop at the end, we're going to get the costume, I think. I think now that the film politics and legalities are all sorted out, I think we're finally going to get it. It almost felt like a sort of like punch in the air in victory. We can now officially call her the Scarlet Witch, because we haven't been able to for all these years.
Yeah, I'm going to use this as a tease for a video coming up on the channel. I'm not going to tell you which one, but we spoke about character costumes that went from the comics, and they might look a bit ropey, but someone put a modern interpretation of them in the film to be able for them to look like this is them in a cinematic universe. And we sort of spoke about how great that is. That video is coming out in a couple of weeks, so watch what our mom wants to figure that one out. And I kind of felt like watching Scarlet Witch there. So I'm like, yeah, it's like the Halloween costumes are ropey. You know, it's one of them. I don't know if they do it. This is their polite nod. And now I've seen a glimpse on there, like it's going to happen, and it might look a lot like that film we speak about, where it is this okay, and we're going to finally do this. And I think the best thing with this is that they've not rushed it. And I'm not saying that as a sort of stupid way, but they've built up to this series. They could have had her costume on her in any of the other films. If she'd been introduced in Age of Ultron in the costume, it would have been like, right, why? But we've never had it. We've had the odd hair color change, the leather jackets, the dark makeup, all that kind of stuff, but they've not dropped that full costume. And I think that's a blessing within itself, is that they've not done it, because now it's going to be a new experience for everyone. And it is this character building moment. I'm not going to say it's up there with Cap picking up the hammer or saying Avengers Assemble, but it's quite high in that sense of you've had a natural build to this monumental moment. And it's not something you just shoehorned into a corner of an episode or chucked in a name drop here and there so you can say you can do it. It's been there from the get-go. So I think that's absolutely earned. And seeing that in the Soul Stone was amazing. And I love the fact we got the Hydra callback. What I was really disappointed with, and I've forgotten that's his name, I really wish we'd have had Baron von Strucker, the original actor, come in. I always forget his name. He's been in a couple of films, always supporting villain characters normally. And I remember him being seen in Age of Ultron, and he was gone after the opening scene. I was like, that's such a waste. I'd have loved for them to have brought him in, because they still went with here's the creepy German scientist, but he's going to get the job done. He doesn't care about their lives. And I thought maybe there was a time they could have brought him in. I'm not too fussed. It's a supporting character's role, but the whole build-up to that scene as well, that every other person had died, it solidifies again that Age of Ultron, that only the Scepter worked on two people, the twins. And obviously, the other one was Quicksilver, who we didn't see anything of, which is worth mentioning. No Aaron Taylor-Johnson still. Whether he is going to pop up in the end in a cameo, I don't have the faintest idea of knowledge, but I think they've left him out for a reason. And let's be honest here, if Marvel wanted him, they probably would have got him in. And that's my bet from the very beginning. I think he's the kind of guy, he seems nice in his interviews. I can't imagine him turning down a really quick cameo. No pun intended. So it'll be interesting to see if he does crop up in the finale, because I think he could.
I think there's been plenty of opportunity where he could come in. It would be good to see him, but I don't know if they're sort of past that point now, because the whole Quicksilver thing's more or less done, because he's basically just like a henchman now, isn't he, for the finale? Or so we assume with the Pietro that we have. So I'm guessing in the film's continuity, then Quicksilver just got his powers from the Infinity Stone as well, right? That's what they went with. I can't remember if they said that in Age of Ultron. So we do have people clarifying what the Scarlet Witch is. So T says, no, Wanda is just a Scarlet Witch. She's always been extremely powerful. That's what I thought. And then James says, Scarlet Witch is not like Scarlet Witch, not like a recurring being, but is a nexus being, which is an anchor point for a universe's reality, like a multiversal keystone that is crucial to the multiverse's stability. Okay, so that explains it. Yeah, I thought that's what it was, but if they change it for the films, and go with a more Dark Phoenix-y kind of thing, then I'm fine with that. But yeah, no, I think we're definitely going to get the costume in the next episode, which should be fun.
Yeah, the Dark Phoenix thing, because I'm sure one of us said it a couple of weeks ago as well, that it felt very Dark Phoenix, that she was too powerful, she didn't understand her powers and that kind of storyline. And I think we kind of felt was building to this. One of the quick thing of Pietro, I want to bring this up actually, because this is something that does get revealed, but call that Agatha calls him fake Pietro. I hope it's not going to be, he wasn't Quicksilver all along, just a fake. There's a passing comment, which me and Chris spoke about before we hit live, and I didn't know if there was going to be a big revelation, but to me, it's now confirmed that the multiverse is open. She's took Quicksilver from X-Men, and she's just bewitched him and chucked him in this world. I think she said that, your brother is the one that's dead with holes in him somewhere. In another continent, she says, isn't she? Mm-hmm. And I think, to me, this is now guaranteed that we're going to get. I think we're going to get the multiverse reveal that, she took him from another timeline, and maybe that'll be something that we're teased upon in the next in the next episode, that we get further exploration in Spider-Man and Doctor Strange 2, because I was kind of very off record. I don't know. We'll get to the end. Ignore me. We'll talk about the multiverse at the end because I think that's going to be another big discussion. But I definitely think Quicksilver is down to the multiverse being opened. And I think there's a reason they've not said that today. If you'd have talked about the multiverse being open, that would have detracted from learning about Wanda's history. So I don't know if there's anything to add about the Infinity Stone one. But then I guess that kind of tees you up in that timeline going back to the Vision stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Just quickly to the fake Pietro thing. Does she call him like Fietro or something? She gives him like a quick nickname. I was like, I can already see the Funko Pops coming out with Fietro on there now. Because didn't they do them? They bought them out and like it was like quotation marks around Pietro or whatever. I can see it happening now. But yeah, no, I would like it to actually be him. Because that reveal was so good, however many episodes it was ago now, and it's the perfect doorway. It's the perfect way into the multiverse. We've got Carl here. Elizabeth Olsen did say in an interview a few weeks back, WandaVision will have its own Luke Skywalker style cameo. Who could it be? We have been debating that for a long, long time. We'll go into speculation and what we think at the end. We know who we'd love it to be. It ain't going to be that person, but we'll talk about that at the end. So we move to the next part now, and this answered a lot of questions, this next one as well. So this was the testing center where SWORD were holding Vision's body. So one of our ideas and theories for the whole series is like, how is Vision here? Has she like literally snatched his body? Is she puppeteering some like decayed and decrepit machine in a warehouse somewhere? We didn't know, but we thought that it was down to her taking the actual body, and there was some security cam footage in one of the previous episodes, which led to us thinking that that was the case. But that wasn't the case. They subverted their expectations with this one. This was one of my favorite scenes, actually. I love the way that Olsen played this as well. So this is shortly after the events of Endgame, where she goes to reclaim the body. All she wants is a funeral. And she gets there and, you know, they eventually let her see the body. And it's this horrific moment where he's just been completely disemboweled. He's in like 6 different chunks. And that's the stuff that I love about this series as well. It's like how dark it can get. It doesn't get too dark. It's not like ridiculously so, but there are some macabre moments. There are some moments where you go like, oh, that's a bit grim. And it's basically all the dead Vision scenes, but we get full on dead Vision here, just getting picked apart, and the way they film it as well, where they're just dismantling him completely. And you imagine what that must be like for Wanda as well. And I love the way she played that. There was a really nice callback actually, which I completely missed. Let me just go up to here. Where was the comment about the ending? Here we go. Carl says, in Infinity War, Wanda says to Vision, I can feel you. When feeling the stone in his head. In this episode, she says, I can't feel you. I missed that until reading that, so that's a really good catch there. Yeah, just all this stuff, just the sheer emotion from Olsen, and then obviously when we actually see her creating Vision, which again put paid to that rumor as well. She was the one who actually created Vision in the world. Yeah, all the best stuff. So much good stuff in this episode, but this was sort of like definitely where it picked up because it is still answering questions that we had. You know, it was the sitcom thing. It explains that, and it also explains more importantly about Vision. And how was he in this world? Well, he was just created out of whole cloth from Wanda.
Yeah, I loved the scene because we were expecting some big, not like one-shot sort of heist breaking scene, but we knew that there was something fishy at SWORD. And when you get her at the desk and they won't let her in, it's like, is she going to tear the place down? And they build up the suspense so well because they tell him where he's going to be, and then it's the director of SWORD. It's not even Vision. We know they've met before. And it's just that moment, here he is. And it was pretty depressing. I was expecting like the body with the top popped off, but the fact it wasn't even the fact he was in 6 pieces. It was like an action figure, like all points of articulation ripped off. It's more the fact like she was watching him and they were just like trying to scrape like his forehead to try and like get into it. And I just kind of sat there like, and I love when she mentioned that when I woke up, Vision wasn't there. So they took that body, and that's when it hit me. I was like, they've been working on Vision for probably 5 years now. 5, because this is obviously set after Endgame, and then I guess not jump to the credit scene fully, but he even makes a passing comment. So, you know, we've been trying this so many times, and it was really a great scene. And when she smashed the windows, like, okay, here we go. We're going to get some, not to bring it Fant 4 stick, but remember that like one good scene when Doctor Doom just killed everyone? Yeah. I was like, are we going to get like Scarlet Witch just completely snap? And it's just that I just want to bury him, and that's when it hits you. And then in the head, you start playing the Anna Silvestri music of when she's killing him and stuff. And it's a very long day listening to soundtracks to work today. But it was one of them where, again, I was ravaging she's puppeteering the dead body theory. And how does it break you further when she reads the note in the car and it's like, this is where we're going to like build our home together? And even the sign off with just the V, because she always called him V and stuff. And I was just kind of like, I'm broken with her. And then she just lets rip. And then like everything is created, and that power, that burst, it was just not even an amazing visual. Because this is the thing, it doesn't feel new because we've had The Mandalorian, but you still forget this is TV. Like this is, I think the WandaVision budget's rumored to be about 200 million, which I'm seeing more and more of every passing week. Still don't know how, but I see it. And that sort of flashback there, that answered pretty much every question I've got about the series, that we know that Sword are the villains. We know that he's been playing something all along. We know that Wanda isn't really twisted in the head, that she's just completely broken. And there is someone else pulling the strings that we don't know about, because there is still that other person. There were other things in place, especially with the whole basement and everything. So there's still a couple of questions, but that scene, those moments, and it was so subtle. There was no big revelation. There was no like armed guards running around. It was a really subtle encounter, and I think that's what sold it more for me, was that it felt so natural.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all the stuff with Wanda and what they did with her, absolutely fantastic. It's the villain side that's lacking, and specifically, you mentioned Sword. The Sword guy is still very two-dimensional from what we've seen so far. We have one episode left. If they can work miracles with that character in the last episode, then fair enough. I don't know if that character is going to go on into the Phase 4 films, into other TV series, if we're going to see him crop up, if Sword are going to be sort of like the new big bad, almost like a rival S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of agency that, I guess that's Hydra, isn't it, I suppose. But it seems like there's a lot of stuff happening and a lot of characters you need to tie up for next week that kind of need more attention than him. I think if they had their opportunity, they've missed that now. He is just generic evil military guy. I think he's just going to stay that way. There was another flashback as well, to the first time that Wanda and Vision kind of really like had a heart to heart. And this was Paul Bettany, because I was watching this and I was going, okay, this is the Wanda / Agatha centric episode. That's fair enough. Vision still flying there. I thought we're probably not going to get any Paul Bettany in this episode. And we did. And I've got to say, this was probably one of his best performances, because you realize, and it, again, I should probably go back to like Age of Ultron and Civil War, how much his character has evolved. Like, he's a constantly learning and evolving machine. But it's that nervousness, and he can't talk to Wanda, and he doesn't really understand human emotion because he's still very, very new at that point. He hasn't had that time to sort of get human interaction. And it was like just a really nice, genuine moment. Again, it reinforced the whole sitcom side of things, that it's a coping mechanism. It's like a therapy for Wanda. It's sort of like it lets her escape the real world, which is exactly the whole crux of the show. But just that initial moment and that awkwardness, and it just shows what a good actor that Paul Bettany is, where even though he's playing the same character, he can have many different personalities and as the character literally evolves. So I'm really glad they threw that in there as well, because it never really stood out to me in the MCU, but I remember some people saying this romance has come out of nowhere between these two. And I can understand people saying that, especially to the level that romance gets to. But there was still always like a connection there. I always sort of like saw that connection. I don't know if it was in Civil War. There was one film that sort of like cemented that as the first time they were together. I think it was that one, Civil War. But this, again, the Clone Wars thing, you go back, you throw this scene in now, it just adds way more to it and shows the initial spark of that connection between the two of them.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point talking about that scene, because I remember watching Civil War for the first time. I was like, oh, they're a couple now. And it was like, was he making dinner for her? And I've got no issue with it, because I know they're two of the most powerful people. That I think everyone knew that the whole concept of Civil War was this versus that. It was a really smart way to build up Vision and Scarlet Witch, because they're always deemed two of the most powerful Avengers. And obviously, when you get to the airport fight, they do have the little skirmish between them, and building that relationship between the pair of them added to that ever so slightly in that film. But it's something that, without getting onto criticism of Age of Ultron, it's a plot point relationship that was followed up and that was bettered and was developed. You got the scenes in Glasgow at the start of Infinity War where you've got Vision with Paul Bettany's face, not the robot, and you had all these moments to build up to the ending in not Endgame, in Infinity War. So much of that stuff really works, and they took a big risk, the Roosters, and I give them credit for that, because that was not something I thought could have worked. And here we are talking about their own series, which has demonstrated all of that stuff. And I think you need those moments, even though this is a series. The structure of TV allows you to delve into characters more. That if we just look at some of the best fictional characters ever created across sort of media, a lot of them are going to be TV, because you just get time to develop.
Mhm.
You can add in sequences that you can't afford to put in. If you've got a $200 million film, you've got 90 minutes to sort of 2 hours, let's be polite, to introduce someone new, tell a story, evolve them, move on. With a TV series, if you're going to get a season order, there's at least 8 episodes. And you can play with them however much. Like, you can add in small nuances that you might not be able to develop on a film. And I feel as if they did that really well in this. And again, that sitcom side of it, that, we kind of, once they show the Dick Van Dyke, it's like, okay, we're going to get Bewitched at some point, and then we're going to get Malcolm in the Middle at some point. I know they didn't do Modern Family. The fact they were showing clips as well, it was just, I guess, for the viewers at home that hadn't already clocked it, it just even cemented that even further for those that didn't know what the comparisons were. So it's a really interesting dynamic, I think, to bring onto it and to kind of explain it, because the whole sitcom structure, a lot of people do like sitcoms to get away from reality. That is a very common thing, and I think it was developed in the right way. And even Vision learning it with her was quite cool, because he didn't understand the concept that, why is it funny that he's hurt? No, that's not the humor. The humor is that he's not hurt. It's just a trope you expect within this. And I liked that side of it. And all leading up to the creation moment, when without getting into Palpatine again, the ability to create life, that blew me away, because that was in the trailer. And I'm not here to criticize the trailer, but I was like, oh, was this some really weird advert thing where the two of them were sequenced together? And then as that happened, I was like, oh no, I was like, yeah, that was the trailer after all. And it was the jaw drop moment that, oh my god, he wasn't a puppet. She has reached this new level of power where she's created life, and the twins as well. Yeah, she said she was pregnant, but ultimately that's via someone that she's created. And it was just a really interesting sort of insight and delve into that. And what they called it, chaos power, which I've looked into today. That's something that is established within Marvel. I don't know if there's anything else I want to get to before we jump into those last few moments, actually.
So I wanted to go back, actually. There was a moment that I forgot to mention earlier, and we're sticking with the Star Wars comparisons here. I think maybe it was last week you mentioned about sort of like the Snoke theories that were coming out right in the lead up to episode 8. And obviously, we all saw where that turned out. But Mephisto, it's a name that keeps cropping up, still will continue to crop up. And I said this out loud at home as I was watching this. We see the Fly again. Now, I didn't recall the Fly from the previous episode. You mentioned that when Mephisto first showed up, he was in the form of a fly or something like that. And they focus on that fly loads. I was like, oh my God, it's going to happen. He's like an animagus. He's going to turn into the devil. We're finally going to see Mephisto. And then the fly was turned into a bird. And then that was kind of grim as well. Like when she catches the bird and you can hear it squawking and she's crushing the bird in her hand. I was like, oh, that's kind of horrible. And then she throws it and turns it into grass or whatever it is and feeds it to the rabbit. And that's it. It's gone. I was like, oh, there's teasing Mephisto. And I said it out loud. I shouted at the screen. I was like, oh my God, Mephisto is going to happen. It was exactly me at episode 8. Darth Plagueis, it's going to happen. It's coming up. The revelation's coming, and he's cut in half. So it was a similar moment to that. I don't know if anyone else thought they were going in that direction, or if you were just, passively watching it. As a weird side thing, I think I mentioned this as well. Agnes has got this pet rabbit. I wish it had been the black cat, because it's comic accurate. When she's got it in her arms and she's stroking it, it should have been the black cat from the comics. I forgot what the cat's called. I did mention it in last week's episode, but yeah, I wanted to mention that because that was a scene from earlier on in the episode before we move on to the ending. I don't know if you have any opinions on that. Did you think it was going to be? Did you think we were going to get him this episode, or did you know better that it wasn't going to happen?
I've been torn over the last few weeks because Mephisto, I think me and you even spoke in the week, even before today, about, I think I mentioned could this be a Snoke thing? I think we each had our own theories, and it was the same thing. I'm thinking of this being episode 8. I think you were thinking of it being episode 9, where Snoke is this, and I thought, no, it's going to be Snoke where they kill him and we don't know anything. And it's really interesting, this conversation. But when she grabbed the fly, I was like, again, it was Mad Eye Moody stuff. I just kept thinking of the lesson of the spider. And then I was like, oh, she's playing with this. Is this going to be a revelation? I was like, this would be a really strange revelation, in a basement. giving your story and then just summoning the devil. So I was like, I'm not really sure what's about to happen. And then she turns, and then she feeds it to the rabbit. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, we'll say the M word again, Mephisto. He's if he's gonna pop up, it's gonna be episode. It's so funny. It's like, could you imagine if like the actor of Mephisto is the big Paul Bettany cameo who goes on about? I don't know, but
post-credit scene of episode 9, do we reckon? Maybe now at this point. That's my only hope now for a Mephisto reveal.
My Mephisto idea, I'm not going to make an outright prediction because I know we're going to say that for a little bit. I know we're kind of at the ending. What I think is going to happen, this isn't a serious prediction. I think Mephisto, if he's going to be introduced next week, it's going to be a really small, quick moment. Maybe a credit scene, as you said. Maybe Agnes, like, I failed you and gets killed, that kind of villain trope. And I think if he's going to be introduced next week now, he is going to be a phase 4 threat. He's not going to be, this was the WandaVision villain. He's going to be a big bad. We don't know for how long, but we know we're getting 3 films in the, I keep saying WandaVision feels like a film. We're getting Spider-Man and Doctor Strange in the multiverse that we know of. There could be other films in the multiverse in the next few years that we don't know about. They might be planning to announce loads of shit after WandaVision finishes, just like the Book of Boba Fett was. That was the credit scene, and that they didn't do that at the Disney panel. Maybe there's something else they're going to drop in the credits. Who knows? But as a sort of not story prediction, but as a future prediction, that if we get a Mephisto now, it's going to be a setup for something far bigger down the line. And I'm very curious. I don't want to keep saying he's in it. Signs are pointing towards it, but if he's not, I'm not going to really be too fussed. But if he's not going to be in it, then I would like Agatha to be developed more next week.
I was going to say the series is already like dealing with a lot of stuff and having to tie a lot of stuff up. So if you then bring in another threat, and maybe you could make the argument that Agnes isn't sort of like a strong villain and they need to develop her more even at this point rather than bringing in another villain as well. So I think if they are, it's going to have to be some kind of tease. And I mean, if that is the ending thing, I mean, that's going to get people talking. That's call that a tease. That's absolutely a tease. That's what you want. That's almost sort of like the levels of Thanos at the end credit scene of the Avengers film, right? Let's talk about the ending then. So I always profess to love comic accurate costumes. This is going to be my segue onto this. If you can make the costume as accurate to the comic counterpart as you can, do it. You're making a comic book thing, go for it. Agnes's costume looked kind of bad. And I don't know if it was a bad costume. I don't know if it was the actor in the costume. It felt very, I don't know if it was the lighting, the staging, the shot, whatever it was, it looked really cheap, and it did kind of make me laugh. It felt like I was watching Power Rangers or something. It was kind of like Rita Repulsa from Power Rangers, if anyone knows what the hell I'm talking about. But fair play to them. They did the costume, so, I don't want to be hypocritical on here. I've made the point, if you can do it, do it. They did it. It looks a bit ropey, but at least they did it. So, and then there's the archetypal choose. You did you showed me a great meme earlier from the first Spider-Man film. It's the Green Goblin thing. It's the Riddler from Batman Forever. It's every villain ever. Choose between this and this, and it's the 2 kids. And then we get, of course, the Scarlet Witch name drop at the end, which was like the air punching moment, as I mentioned at the end, where it's like, finally, after all this time, I've always been calling her Scarlet Witch since the days of Age of Ultron because I knew that she was that character, but now that they've like sorted the whole like Fox thing out and Disney are slowly taking over the world, now they have the power to say Scarlet Witch, so that's nice. They didn't even say Quicksilver, did they? As far as I'm aware, either. Was it both? Yeah. So maybe we'll get a name drop to him as well if he comes back. Anything else I was going to say about this ending? You mentioned earlier about the whole multiverse thing and that everything was created in the world. I still think the kids are going to be real. I think it's going to be this sort of weird middle ground thing where people and life created in this world are still kind of real in some way. There's somewhere in between irreality and reality, and I think the kids are going to be key to that. They're going to be like uber powerful because they come from this like parallel dimension thing that's been created by Wanda, but life was also given to them. It's going to be like this weird in between thing, I think, but I think the kids are here to stay. And maybe you keep talking about like a Young Avengers thing. I don't know if I don't want that. I'm just going to come out and say, I don't want that to happen. But at least they're characters that could stick around and, another 10, 20 years. Christ, how long are we going to be talking about Marvel and the MCU at this point? Could age up, or they could get actors to like play like a super aged up version of them.
Yeah, the kid thing's interesting because you mentioned, they could be this new being, this new thing, and
Yeah.
you literally just took away what my next prediction is. They name dropped. They took the piss a couple episodes ago. I can't remember what they name dropped. They had the rights for originally a couple of episodes ago. I've completely forgotten. Ignore me. This week was the big name drop was Scarlet Witch, right? So, we've now got the rights to be able to say this. I can't remember what it was a couple of weeks ago. Someone please comment that because it's really annoying me now. What did they say a couple of weeks ago? They're taking the mick out of names. Like, you can actually say the name now. Can't remember what it is. Anyway, I think they're going to name drop Mutant next week, and that's going to be a gargantuan name drop.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what. I'm not saying her kids. One of the theory from the very get-go is that Scarlet Witch is going to be creating the mutants in this world, and I'm just sat here now saying, why not? We know she has the power to create life. We've now seen it for 3 things. I love that Agnes Lima. She says that you've got all this gift and you're there making your breakfast, your dinner, and stuff like that. And I thought it was a really interesting dynamic. And I don't know what her game plan is next week, but I think we're going to get, if not a name drop of Mutant, there's going to be something about the X-Men. That's been a prediction for a very long time. I've just seen on Twitter, this is why I must put up a minute ago, someone has just done an interview with one of the Russo brothers for Cherry. And he's actually said, I can't watch it, the interview. However, he said that he's just put in a summary. They speak about how they had to consider the creation of WandaVision and beyond during Endgame, which to me means if they were making Endgame back in 2016, and in 2016 they were already planning WandaVision, Kevin Feige is just sitting there laughing because he's already in Phase 7 in the scripts, and we're sat here like, what's Phase 4 about? So it's really interesting seeing what their game plan is. But I think the whole creation stuff, I think the mutants are going to be a big name drop. I think that's going to be a massive thing across Phase 4, and I think we're going to get Scarlet Witch in costume, which we want. It'll be weird if she refers to herself as Scarlet Witch. I don't know. I am all the Jedi and I'm the Scarlet Witch, is that kind of thing. It'd be a bit strange if she did that kind of I am Scarlet Witch thing, but if there's a way for her to don the costume or something, I think we could have a really cool moment. I want to say that the moment of the Infinity Stone is, to me, one of the best moments of the series so far. But if she just magically put the suit on and flew down, it's like, I don't think that would look that cool. It'd be very weird to do in a finale when her kid's being held hostage. Like, quickly, put on your costume and let's have a magic wizard battle.
Maybe it's like the Vision. You know how Vision can just sort of like materialize into his costume? Maybe they could do something like that, and use like that cosmic power where she transforms into the entity that is the Scarlet Witch. That could work. I think that'd be a good way of updating it.
I think that'd be great. I think we're definitely going to get a wizard battle. I keep saying wizard battle. It's not Harry Potter.
Let's get Voldemort in there. Why not?
If this is going to be like Dumbledore versus Voldemort, but better, it's going to be bloody impressive. So the costume looked weird. Having the kids as well with the weird like dog leads on was also really weird. But it just looked a bit strange. And it's like, okay, we need to know why she needs the kid hostage. Is she trying to piss off Wanda to see her maximum power, or is there something else going on? So I'm very intrigued to see where that leads to. I think even off the core of it aside, how do you react to all of that shit? Then we get the post-credit scene. We get the unveiling of White Vision. We knew they were building. Yeah, let's get into it.
So is the new Vision Ultron? Well, I mean, that's been talked about. That is a theory. I've said that I don't want that to happen. Ultron was a villain. That happened. It's done. Move on. Go into new territory. And it has been going into new territory. I don't want it to be. I think there is something in the comics pertaining to a white vision or an evil vision, like created by scientists or something that they have to take out. I think it's basically just going to be that they've created this ultimate weapon to try and go in and kill Wanda. So she's going to be beset by Agnes and this version of Vision. And I think Vision is going to fight this new version of Vision. I think they're just pairing people up for rivalries in the next episode, essentially.
Yeah, we're going to get the Spider-Man point of like Vision and Vision. It's interesting because I'm the same as you. I can't remember I was saying a voice note with someone else where he reminds me of like the Iron Giant. That is he going to be like the Russian Iron Giant mode where the rockets come out and sort of been building up to. I think someone said last time that in their analogy name they'll be used for weapon now when it wasn't originally when the Captain Marvel character set up. So that was an interesting spot, but they built up to this, and again, generic bad man in the suit. we don't know what's going to happen to him. Is he? It's the Moriarty thing, as you said last week. Is it going to be this big name drop to Mephisto or something? I don't know. I don't think it's going to be Ultron. I think there is a theory in there in regards to them creating a weapon that might be able to be so functional it's its own entity. We're looking at some of the history of White Vision today. There are other versions of Vision in the comics. He does crop up in House of M apparently as a form of the Sentinels that obviously hunt the X-Men, and it's basically Howard Stark created them. And I think they explained, so I was only reading it really briefly. I think it basically says that there's something not right and it doesn't fully function the way they want it to be, and it becomes its own thing, takes its own life. So I can't imagine them doing that in all honesty, but I think there's going to be a sense of it there where it's just a weapon going in for the kill on Wanda. But what we are going to get next week, which I'm more than willing to predict, Paul Bettany's going to die twice on screen. He's going to be killed again. Now, we spoke about this before. He died in Age of Ultron when the Internet Ultron killed Internet Jarvis. There's number one. He died twice in Endgame. There's three. Not Endgame, sorry, Infinity War. We saw him die a couple of weeks ago. There's death number 4. If we get Vision number 2 and White Vision dead, Paul Bettany's been killed on screen 6 times in one franchise. I don't know.
Is that in cinema history? I'm trying to think of another character that's died that amount of times in film or TV.
The same franchise. I mean,
Yeah.
let's take away Tom Cruise from Edge of Tomorrow, like the you live every day thing. That's different, but the same guy 6 times. I don't know. That's unparalleled.
That's a madness. Yeah, I think that they're going to keep Paul Bettany around. I think what it's going to be is you've got the physical body of this new Vision, and then you've kind of got the spirit that Wanda's created. I think she's going to merge the two, and you're going to have your new Vision. Sell those action figures, sell those new Vision toys for the next film. White Vision with the blue eyes, and like the eyes. You'll hit a button on the back, and the eyes can glow blue or something like that. Get those toys sold. But also it keeps Paul Bettany around as a new character. And I guess you can, chalk it up to being comic accurate, that there were other versions of Vision. I think if they kill him off again, though, it's just going to be laughable. It's going to have no impact. It's going to have no emotion, because we had that emotion. We had that moment in Infinity War. And we've kind of undone that with this, but it's going in an interesting direction. And we're learning more about it. We learned a lot from this episode today, that she created him out of whole cloth. We get those nice character moments. But I would quite like this to be... I can see your point. I would like this to be like an epilogue on Vision's character. It's like there comes a point where you just have to let go and you just have to move on. And I think that should be a point for Wanda's character, that she tried desperately to cling on to the life that she wanted. She knows that she can't have that. She knows that it's a fake. She knows that it's a facade, and the evil and problems that can come from that, and everything that's happened around her by creating this world that she did. So she's going to have to say like goodbye to it, like one final goodbye. But if that is the case, then it is repeating the thing that we've already seen, and I just don't think it's going to have the impact that time around. On the other hand, you could have her merging, the spirit of Vision that she's created into this body of Vision, and keep Paul Bettany around. But then also the problem with that is that you've basically got Vision. You've reset the status quo. You killed off a character, which was a big moment at the end of Infinity War. And then it's, no one's ever really gone, and you bring them back and no one can die. And there's no Loki died and then is getting his own TV show and is alive and well again. It's just, there's no finality to any characters. And I think that the series, the MCU as a whole, yes, we've had it with Iron Man. Maybe he'll come back. He dies in that film and he still gets a hologram right afterwards. So technically he does come back for like one other scene in Endgame after the point where he dies. I would like it to be over for Vision, but I just don't know if they're going to do that, because you're going to be repeating the same thing again.
I get exactly what you mean. I think they're going to kill him. I think it's going to be... I know it sounds weird. Technically, it was on his own terms in Infinity War the first time round that he made Wanda do it. I think this one's going to be about the acceptance of the death, and I think whether she closes the hex knowing he's going to die at that moment as well, I don't know. But I think we're going to have a sense of finality, because I think they know that this wouldn't do a lot of what is, the big thing of Infinity War was that death of Vision, and that was stable. He didn't rock up in Endgame. He didn't appear again, and I don't mind that we've got him now, but to me, it would just be too much of he's alive and kicking, or he's another version. White Vision's fine for this finale thing. It's a bit like the whole Logan dynamic with the X-23. I don't mind Vision fighting Vision, but he needs to go, politely put, because I love Paul Bettany. And I think even Paul Bettany said years ago, and I think he said this week about WandaVision that he wanted, he thought he was being called to an office to say thank you for the role, and he was called and said, "Hey, do you want to be Vision in a TV show?" And he'd already been killed twice. So I think Vision's going to die. I think it has to return to like a new equilibrium that WandaVision looking back as a series. If it's going to set the multiverse, fine, but you can't have Vision roaming Earth. He's going to have to go. And I think the Hex is going to close. And I think when it does, it's going to take Vision with it. And I think it's going to be one of the. I know what you mean. It's going to the big emotional beat of Infinity War is Vision's death. And if we get anything similar, I don't think it will be the same stakes. But I think there's going to be a moment which is going to be like that. And I want it to play differently. Don't use the same music. Don't do anything we've seen before. Mm-hmm. Try something new with it because it's going to hit home differently.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I guess the last point that we need to talk about as well is our speculation for who the big cameo is going to be at the end of the next episode. So this has been a thing that sort of surfaced, well, some people say like from a really early interview or for a couple of weeks back. I'll bring up the comment again. Elizabeth Olsen said in an interview a few weeks back, WandaVision will have its own Luke Skywalker-style cameo. Who would it be? I think someone mentioned that Paul Bettany says that they're working with an actor that they've always wanted to work with. Bold prediction from me. I have no grounds of why I think this. I'm just going to throw a name out there. Patrick Stewart, Charles Xavier. If you're going to start teasing like the whole X-Men stuff, you got to bring one of those big hitters in now. Hugh Jackman's not the right kind of person to deliver some big news that commands the screen where you hang on their every word. It either needs to be a McKellen or it needs to be a Patrick Stewart. And to me, Patrick Stewart is kind of the... Hugh Jackman's the face of X-Men, but in terms of like the actual X-Men as a whole, it's Charles Xavier for me, the director of the X-Men. Bring him in. He's done Picard, the new series, so he has done TV recently. It's not like it's unheard of. I could see him coming into it. I think that would be cool. I'd love to see him. We've already bought one X-Men character in. Why not him? And if not him, if you're going with a new continuity, I guess with Quicksilver, I'd settle for a McAvoy. That would be cool as well if they're going to continue that. The X-Men franchise is this weird thing where it had its opportunity for a reboot with First Class. It chose to sort of like skirt the lines and be a soft reboot in that it essentially kind of was, but it still was tied into what we'd seen before. You still had Hugh Jackman, and then the next one, obviously, you have all the old cast in there as well. This is their time for a straight up reboot now that Disney have the rights back to it. And they've already used Quicksilver from the other iteration of X-Men again. So it's going to be like another soft reboot, whatever it is, and still tying it into the old ones. But a big hitter from the X-Men franchise. I'm going to say Patrick Stewart. I have no theories as to why, whether it will happen. I'm just going to throw a name out there. That's mine.
Oh, it's hard to try and even counter Patrick Stewart. I think everyone thought Ian McKellen was the really obvious one because of Wanda, because of the heritage, and then the Paul Bettany so I've longed. The keyword is longed for as well. It's its own cryptic game, I know that the problem is when you say the Luke Skywalker cameo, that's not just a cameo. That's a. I mean, I'm going to say this. There is no Marvel cameo that will compare to that. I'm going to take all my Star Wars bias aside. That is a legacy character who we have not seen in that form since 1983. I mean, not for a last discussion. That is an older Mark Hamill. That is aged Mark Hamill, character developed Mark Hamill. We saw the 1983 Luke Skywalker. You cannot get that in any modern day Marvel thing. Tobey Maguire is probably going to be a form of that, and that's 2002. Patrick Stewart is probably, as you said, the best choice. If you need someone to bring gravitas to a scene, to develop the world, even boost the multiverse, you would need somebody like Charles Xavier, and Patrick Stewart would be probably, to me, the best option for a cameo for where the series is heading, or where we think it's heading, or where it is right now. Patrick Stewart is by the best one. Sorry, by far the best one. And I can't suggest anyone that's not him. It won't be Aaron Taylor Johnson because they wouldn't hype that up. It's saying that Luke Skywalker cameo just makes it much harder. And I love the speculation with it because every passing day goes by, it's another, like, Paul Bettany said this, Elizabeth Olsen said this, and someone was like, oh, wouldn't it be great if it was, oh my God, I've already forgotten. There was a character tied into something. Irrelevant. It's just completely gone off my mind, and there's there 30 seconds here. Basically, people. Oh, Dick Van Dyke. Someone saying that imagine if they had one like these sitcom legends come in. I was like, that's not a Luke Skywalker cameo though. And I think I don't think this is a criticism of Elizabeth Olsen. She's a massive Star Wars fan. I think there's a further crying at the red carpet for Civil War because Mark Hamill turned up and she didn't know, she never met him. And she's always said when she was a kid, she was a massive Star Wars fan as well. And is it that because she's such a big Star Wars fan, and she's just saying that this is the Marvel version of that? And I really don't know who it can be. I don't think it's Doctor Strange at all. I think he will probably be in it or in the credits or whatever set up next week is going to get obviously paid off in Doctor Strange because he's going to be in that. He's got his own film. He's going to be in the Spider-Man film. But I don't know who this cameo can be. I'd love it to be. Personally, where the story's set, I'd like one of the original X-Men. Problem is, if you had Wolverine in it, you're not just being tricky. You're doing the Logan's back. And Logan's one of the best comic films ever made. And Hugh Jackman used to joke for years. Patrick Stewart, again, let's give some more fuel to the fire. Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman always said, we would love to return if there was to ever be an Avengers crossover. And that was always said before Logan came out. And I think they're both over the last two, because when Logan was in production, that's when Disney bought Fox. And I remember when that film came out, they probably sat there saying, like, we had our chance and it didn't materialize. And maybe one of the two of them is going to cameo. And if it's a multiverse moment, I can imagine it being Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. If there was a kind of really boring, like, glimpse or montage of them in the multiverse and they're seeing all these doorways or they're seeing all these worlds they're flicking in, if there was a random X-Men thing, then yeah, I could see Wolverine. Because Hugh Jackman, I feel like, would do it for a cameo, but only if the cameo wasn't like a piss take like Deadpool. I think he'd do it properly. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect, but my money is on Patrick Stewart or Logan. I know what, maybe they're going to blow my mind. Maybe there's a cameo I've never even considered, I've even contemplated, or maybe it's quite literally Luke Skywalker and we're getting the Avengers crossed over with Star Wars. I don't
talk about the no one's ever really gone though. Like if they bring back either Wolverine or Charles Xavier. Charles Xavier's died twice in the X-Men films, once in X-Men 3, once in Logan. Wolverine's dead and buried by the end of Logan. And then we're, just to bring him back, pick him up. Why not bring him back? But if they do bring Charles, go on, sorry.
So I would say Evan Peters could be a question, an answer for this, because if they need to drop someone off back in the multiverse, because he's got to have a character resolution. Imagine if they're like, oh, sorry, we're returning the X-Men man. He's coming to our multiverse. You're then already time set to the first class not database.
Yeah.
Sounds weird. That timeline, and who could crop up in that timeline? Wolverine. Because he met him in Apocalypse. And I'm not saying I want it to be him, but if you could shoehorn someone in like that, if you want, again, and that goes off that, let them stay dead from Logan. It ended the character arc. I really wouldn't mind. I don't think a cameo of either of them would undo Logan, presuming it's only ever a cameo, and it's so specifically done for this one moment, for this one episode, and it's never to be spoken about. You know that scene in Days of Future Past when Charles meets Charles, and it's for one scene. Something like that, where you can't have that scene done again, and it works contextually for what was happening on screen.
It's just a decade thing, isn't it? I've mentioned this countless times, but the decade fuck-ups from X-Men Apocalypse and X-Men Dark Phoenix, like the age of the character, there are so many inconsistencies, not just specifically in those films, but all of the X-Men films are just full of plot holes and inconsistencies. I don't know how they can write those in if they bring them in. I don't even think people even consider them now. They just sort of go and see. I know I'm in that boat, just go and see each individual X-Men film as its own thing. I think if you go by that theory then that sort of Pietro is going to go back into the Days of Future Past world, I reckon he'll take the kids and he'll be like, there's a school for gifted youngsters, there'll be people like yourself, and then you can set them up as like two key players then in the future X-Men films, because we will be getting future X-Men films. It's just going to take a bit to get there because of just how the MCU's gone, the fact that they didn't have the rights. They've got to work them in a creative and like good way that makes sense with this continuity that they've come up with. I think it's going to be a big hitter from the X-Men franchise. So that's sort of like the last I'll say on my prediction for that. I think we've pretty much covered everything. I'm going to go over to like overall opinions now for this episode, and Life of Brian getting in a little bit late, but I'm going to echo the thoughts that he said as well. It was awesome. I loved it. It's my favorite episode. I will echo those thoughts completely. all the sheer amount of stuff that it did for Wanda's character, flashing back to those moments might even completely re-examine the way that I go back to watch Age of Ultron when I eventually go back to it. I will go back to it at some point, probably after this is all said and done. When there's the week in between shows, I'll probably go back and watch Age of Ultron and see if I do have a different opinion on that. The only sort of like ropey bits for me, the shaky bits, were Agatha's motive as to why she wants to do what we do. And I haven't seen the last episode, so maybe there'll be a big thing in that. Maybe we'll get more of an aspect as to her character and what she actually wants from the situation. It being as it is in this episode, it is kind of inconsistent with the revelation from the end of last week's episode and who's actually behind the whole thing. But yeah, just the greatest like character development I've seen for Wanda in a long time. This whole show really, but this episode was sort of where it all came together. We got context for the sitcoms and, you know, the fate of Vision's body and what happened with that. And I'm absolutely out of my mind excited for next week for the finale. If they do go in all guns blazing and it is, you know, this ridiculous budget, God knows what's going to happen. So this felt like it was a longer episode today, not of our show, of the actual show, WandaVision. And I think it needs that. So I'm hoping that the next episode is either about the same, 40, 45, or even bump it up to an hour to finish it all off with. I'm loving this show. This was my favorite episode. So I guess that's sort of like my overall opinions on this one.
I can't rank it yet because I'm going to rewatch all 8 over the next week. I want to say I might try and see if I can do them across Wednesday and Thursday, smash them out. This is a weird one because after I watched it for the first time, I was like, "Oh, it was really good. It was a nice deep dive," and that was kind of it. And I don't know, the more I've thought about this across the day, the better this episode's become in my head. I would say it sits in my top 3. I don't want to say it'd be at the top yet, but based off another rewatch in the next week, I'm very intrigued to see where it does rank because I think there's a lot of great episodes. I think let's take away episode 7, 1, 2, and 3. So what does that mean? 4, 5, 6. So there's definitely a strong top 4 now. I think 4, 5, 6, and 8. Don't know the order of that, but I'm excited to see what they're all like on a rewatch and how they look as a given unit together as a full thing. So I can time it as late as possible. That look really nice heading into next Friday. But another solid episode. Again, we've got so many answers to the questions now, and normally we say we get 3 answers and then 10 more questions. I have very few questions left. Obviously, there's still loads of them, but a lot of answers were tied up, and I think they did it in the right way where they didn't overpower your head with, let's talk some exposition reveal, let's do this, and that. The way in which they chose to do these revelations by her being in those scenes was so much more natural and easier on the eye for the audience and a better experience than someone just saying everything out loud. So massive credit to that. And I that's kind of my polite final thoughts. I can't delve into it. It's been talking about for an hour, but it's setting up for an extraordinary finale next week. Just needs some more Agatha. I don't want to say explanation knowledge, but if she is the villain, please get a bit more credibility on her as the villain, because you had the amazing song last week, and then this was like supporting role now this week and talking, and magically has dogs on leads at the end. So I want to get a bit more from her. But aside from that, I'm very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So that'll do it for our episode today. Previously on. We want you to comment along. Now, you have been commenting along, but maybe there's things that we forgot to talk about. Maybe there was a moment that you wanted to mention and forgot about it after the fact. Keep the conversation going. We love talking about WandaVision. We love talking with all of you guys. So please like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And join us next Friday for the finale. I can't believe we're finally at the finale. So obviously, week to week, WandaVision spoiler reviews every Friday, 8 p.m. We will be back next week at exactly the same time. The last time for WandaVision, at least. We will be moving into all the other Disney Plus TV shows as and when they come out, but it's going to be a sad farewell to WandaVision. We've been loving doing this every single week and, bringing more people on for the comments, and having these conversations with you guys, and you guys schooling us and teaching me some things from the comic books as well. So that's all in good fun. We have a lot of other shows on top of that, though. So obviously, if you're interested in our stuff, let's stick with the Marvel thing. Let's keep with the Marvel thing. I do this every week, but George. If you want more Marvel, oh boy, you're going to get it. The entire MCU.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. So we've got the Infinity Saga retrospective series starting this Monday, the 1st of March. That's going to be going up 8 p.m. GMT. Going to get an upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, taking us through to the end of April. It's been fascinating revisiting some of the ones we're up to so far, and If you haven't already figured out by now, we're doing it in release date order. So episode 1 is going to be Iron Man 1, the very first entry in the series, taking it all the way back to 2008. And we've got a fair few pre-recorded now. We've got a lot of scheduling, a lot of planning going on. So if you check into a couple of our videos in the next few weeks and we're magically there like, WandaVision's not aired yet, we hope it's good. Damn right it's good so far. So it's going to be really fun for you guys watching videos where we have no idea what's happening 2 weeks from the day they're being recorded. But for anyone that wants more Marvel stuff, looking back, and when we do get to Age of Ultron, that's going to be a big one. I think a lot of people wanting to talk about that, and WandaVision's added a whole new dimension. So Marvel stuff, we have you covered right through to the end of April, and then it'll be, well, we've got Falcon and the Winter Soldier starting up in a couple of weeks. There's Marvel's What If coming in the summer. There's Loki coming in June, I guess we can say now. There is so much going on, so be sure to follow us for all of that. And aside from Marvel, we've been covering a lot of Eddie Murphy films recently, and our retro reviews will continue once more. We're going to be reviewing Coming to America this Tuesday, the 2nd of March. Going to be a very fun one that me and Chris both haven't fully seen. So there's going to be sort of 2 new interpretations on that. And of course, that's leading to the sequel coming out next Friday, the 5th of March on Amazon Prime. That's just coming to with the number America. And as well as that, we have the Cinema Savvy Awards, which continue every Thursday. Last night we did Best Cinematography. It was a pretty good episode, talking news to talking. We haven't really spoke about cinematography on the channel. We're not really talking about it in WandaVision, but if you like cinematography, if you like your Oscar sort of stuff, check it out every Thursday night, where we're going to have another video. And next week's going to be Best Foreign Language Film. So I think you're all assuming Parasite's going to be on there. You'll find out next Thursday if it really is.
Absolutely. So real quick blast of the socials. We have a lot of content coming out. So obviously find us on Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy. We're on Letterboxd now. Find all of our lists, everything we're watching in a very easy, concise way to view it. That's .com/Cinema Savvy. And also we've got our merch, TeePublic link in the description down below. Once again, final thank you to everyone that's been commenting along tonight. We hope to see you all and more of you next week for the finale, because that's going to be a big talking point. But for tonight, that will do it for us. And we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.